Hello, this is Own Soldier 86 coming back to you with part 6 of the tutorial series on how to make levels in Super Smash Bros. 64. What we just did a second ago is edit this texture so that it would look correct and nice. And we did that by doing the nearest neighbor option in paint.net instead of doing the bilinear. And that's going to make the pixels look a little bit cleaner. So we can stretch this to whatever size we need. We're remembering to keep our confines of our textures to either 64, 32, or 16 only. Nothing 8, nothing 128, because it'll mess with the programming when we dump these into the Nintendo 64. So we have our two files here. We have Tails and we have this blue box, and we're going to save these files as, this is important, BMP. Okay. And I had already tried doing this a second ago, but the video quit on me. So we are going to resave this as tails.bmp, and we'll replace it. That's fine. This is important. When we are in paint.net, we have the option of doing a bit depth, and we're going to keep that at 32 and the dithering level at 8. I don't even know what that means. We're just going to keep that the same. And when we go to the blue box, we'll do the same thing. Save as BMP. JPEG sounds tempting because we always use JPEGs and PNGs and TIFFs and GIFs and all this stuff, but nope, it has to be BMP. That's the only file type that the 64 will register. So we're going to save that as box and replace it. Keep the bit depth at 32, and we have two textures ready. Now, clearly that's a lot of work for just two textures. And, when we start making levels, we're going to be using a lot of textures. For an example, I'll show you the aquatic ruin zone that I had created uses, if we count the number of materials that are used, we have 1 all the way through 23. So on average, I've been using about 20 different materials or textures for each level. And I think 20 is a good round number. If you go more than that, you're just going to create more work for yourself. And it's also going to be more taxing on the game when you get it all set up. The more textures you have, obviously, the more memory is required to make those textures show up in the game. So when we have saved our BMP files, you would assume that we would be ready to dump them in the modeling program. And that would not be correct, because when we're using things like paint.net or Photoshop or GIMP, the file type is not formatted correctly. So BMP is a BMP, except it's not. When we make our BMP files ready for the modeling source, we're going to need to go to a program called Pixel Former. And it's an older program, from what I can tell, that can reformat our BMP to the correct format that will be able to be read by the Nintendo 64. So Pixel Former, it seems kind of counterintuitive that we need to have multiple pixel editing softwares to to do the same thing, but I like to edit my pixel stuff in paint.net and then just come over here to export. If you didn't see that, by the way, I went File, Import to get the box in there, and now I'm going to export it as a box.bmp. Same file, and we can overwrite. Yes. This is why this is important that we use Pixel Former, this formatting option right here. Not exactly sure what it does, but it works. And if you're very familiar with this kind of, text, A stands for alpha, RGB, red, green, blue. I'm going to save that back to 32 BPP, which is the highest quality. And if you're doing alpha textures, I think you have to do this setting to make it work correctly. We're going to talk about alpha textures later because that's a whole nother ball game. Let's go and import our Tails sign. Looks pretty good. Export Tails and replace and format. Now those two textures are ready to be used within the modeling program. So you're going to continue to do this with all the textures that you want to use. In the next video, we might talk a little bit more about the textures themselves and how that might be used within the context of your level.